Thank you, Dr. Smith, President Ossenberg, members of the board, central office colleagues, school-based partners, and community members. The longer I do this work, the more keenly I kind of aware that I am that it's always done in partnership. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to work with really everyone in this work together. Would love to spend about 12 minutes here providing a bit of an update on the work that we've been doing really in partnership. So I'll spend about 4 minutes kind of recapping who we are and our partnership, and then I want to spend about 8 minutes delving into one body of work in particular, the coaching model and the vision for teaching and learning. So we were founded in 1997. We're Boston-based. However, we're very much a national organization. I live just outside of Baltimore. I'm joined by my colleague Jenna Bullock, who lives just outside of Minneapolis. So we're kind of all over the place, but founded in Boston, and that's where we get the mass insight. We're a mission-driven nonprofit. A few things about our approach, our people, and where we are. I think we really try to meet partners where they are. We focus on coherence from systems to the instructional core. We try to listen, ask the right questions, identify strengths, and a real thread throughout our work is building local capacity, and we'll talk about that in the context of the coaching model and the vision for teaching and learning in a moment. Our people, we're all learners. Most of us have pretty strong education backgrounds. I myself am a former teacher and baseball coach, school administrators, district administrators, superintendents, policy advisors. And where we are is essentially all over the country. So we have partnerships with states, districts, schools, and programs within schools in a couple of cases in Massachusetts and Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. So kind of this constellation of characteristics, I think, allows us to take on school systems and the challenges that they face through a variety of angles, both because we have a national lens and because our team is composed of folks who have worked sort of throughout different levels in the system, and that contributes to our focus on coherence. The site that I want to talk about most specifically today should be no surprise, EVSC. So this is actually our longest running continuous partnership outside of Massachusetts, and we've been working with our partners here in Evansville since 2012. That work has spanned kind of a number of different areas, and for a couple of examples, we partnered for the creation of the Transformation Zone. We've done 2 rounds of strategic planning resulting in the CIP or Continuous Improvement Plan. We've worked in partnership with central office to create and implement and train directors of school support. We facilitated much of the process and conversation for the vision for teaching and learning, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. The SRA process, we did school readiness assessments or audits in a number of schools, and this I think goes back to the idea of building capacity. The district asked us to train their folks so that that capacity would be in-house moving forward. And so in some cases where the state asks for it, we're happy to provide third-party school readiness assessments, but a particularly exciting thing I think is that the EVSC now has the capacity to do that work themselves. And that's something that we take really seriously as a nonprofit focused on building capacity, is that we're working ourselves kind of out of jobs by embedding capacity within the local district or school. We've also done quite a bit in the last 2 years around instructional coaching in high schools and middle schools. And this is to name just 6 or 7 of our projects. I think what connects what could seem like seemingly disparate bodies of work is that everything is focused directly on the heart of our work together, which is student learning, ensuring that teaching and learning are improving so that students are ready and set up for success at every stage of life. And sometimes that means aligning systems and processes so that resources are streamlined to the instructional core, and sometimes it means going straight into the school and working with the educators. So One of the things I think that's most exciting about our partnership is the amount of time that we've been together and the ways in which the organization has grown together. So on that subject right now, Dr. Smith and our CEO, Dr. Lucy, are co-authoring an op-ed about what makes for effective partnerships. So I want to share with you just a quick reflection from Mass Insight CEO, Dr. Sue Lucy, from her visit here at the beginning of May. I compliment Dr. Smith and the members of the EVSC board for their smart and sustained commitment to school improvement that makes a difference for students. This type of commitment is unfortunately all too rare in our nation's school districts. As the CEO of Mass Insight Education and Research, I am grateful to have partners in EVSC who recognize that improvement is urgent and also takes time. You can't do everything at once, but it's incredibly important to have an improvement agenda that thoughtfully builds from one year to the next, as opposed to having the flavor of the year that adds up to no consequential change. So I've talked for a moment about Mass Insight and our partnership, and again, I want to spend the majority of our time here, or my time here, at the podium, focusing on the coaching model and the vision for teaching and learning. We'll talk a little bit about how this work fits in within the district strategic plan, specifically CIP Priority 1, how we've approached the work together, some early signs of success, and then also how we're thinking about scaling what's working moving forward. And going back to something that Dr. Lucy says here, I think it's really important to underscore that the story of CIP Priority 1 is one of thoughtful building from one year to the next. So taking a step back, school year 2015-2016, a few things happen. One is that the superintendent requests a rigor audit, and a key finding of this is that not enough students have the chance to think about or respond to higher order questions in classrooms. So it's an issue at the core of our work. And then as part of the EVSC continuous improvement current state analysis, a process that includes a number of steps that Mass Insight facilitated. A key finding was that stakeholders from principals to the chief academic officer describe an emerging need for an instructional vision that does a few things. And each of these is both a national phenomenon and I think exacerbated by conditions and context in the state of Indiana. So one is folks wanted a higher bar for instruction. What does it mean to prepare students for jobs that don't yet exist? We know that in 20 or 30 years from now, just as we know looking back 20 or 30 years, that the marketplace for jobs is entirely different than it has been historically. And that means preparing students with skill sets that we don't even fully know at this stage. Simultaneously, 3 years ago, Indiana's legislature passed considerably more rigorous academic standards. And so what does it look like to create a vision that unites the work that's happening across buildings in this district that simultaneously meets the bar of the Indiana academic standards and pushes beyond it, thinking about a 21st century reality in which students are ready and set up for success at every stage? What does that look like inside of a classroom? And what does that have to do with social emotional learning? How can we be sure that students have those skills and those habits of mind to navigate? We knew that it would take a lot of job-embedded professional development. The summer of 2016, ELT, Dr. Smith's committee, and stakeholders has narrowed in on what's the current continuous improvement plan, the blueprint for success. Priority 1 was student learning through GAIN, growth, academics, and innovation through neuroscience, and that included, as a first step, developing a vision for teaching and learning that would serve as a North Star for what teachers were aiming for in their classrooms. Fall of 2016 and spring of 2017, a few things happened concurrently. So looking at the Mass Insight partnership contract with the EVSC from last year, I want to lift up one body of work in particular, actually two. One is the creation of the vision for teaching and learning, and the other is the department chair coaching model, which we piloted at Central High School. And these two things were happening simultaneously, right? So in the fall of last school year, not last school year, the school year that ended 15 minutes ago, but the school year that was actually a year ago. There was the cross-functional steering committee began meeting. So we had Susan Phelps, we had Dr. Stubbs, we had a number of folks from different areas of central office as well as schools meeting to think about and envision what is our vision for teaching and learning, where are we headed as a corporation. We facilitated about a dozen, I think it was 11, teacher feedback opportunities, and there were a couple of themes. Social emotional learning and 21st century skills definitely emerged. We did a national review of instructional frameworks and vision statements. We looked at Washington, D.C., we looked at Baltimore City Schools, we looked at Denver, we also looked at private organizations like TNTP, we looked at new leaders, we looked at what various thought leaders across the country were coming up with, and what we found was that the themes that EVSC teachers hit on hardest were actually what the research and the experts also thought was most important. And that helped us create a working draft of the vision for teaching and learning. Over the course of last summer, we convened 200 middle school certified staff members, that is to say teachers, administrators, to give final commentary on the vision for teaching and learning. And we now have had for about a year a functional vision for teaching and learning. Simultaneously at Central High School, department chairs reported back with a new rubric, salary schedule, and responsibilities. That was I think, incredibly prudent, forward-thinking move on the part of the EVSC to build, to embed that kind of capacity in schools, develop processes for tracking and responding to non-evaluative classroom feedback. So essentially, we were building a model for how to improve teaching through a meta-analysis of what was happening nationally, and then piloting that at Central, and then simultaneously developing a vision for what to coach towards. That set us up for this school year. This is the vision for teaching and learning. It's the cover page, the vision for teaching and learning. So we now had a vision, the vision for teaching and learning, and we had a path, a coaching model. What that led to was the middle school support model, which just wrapped up year one about 3 weeks ago. So a few things, and this is a little bit small here. Essentially, Mass Insight works with directors of school support, other central office administrators, and then the principal and a couple of folks in the building. It depends on the building staffing structure. It could be an assistant principal, it could be a mentor teacher, it could be both, to learn some fundamentals of the vision for teaching and learning, as well as coaching, and then schools partner to implement. And this relationship allows principals to learn from each other, directors of school support to learn from each other. We use essentially an instructional rounds model. Again, a major theme here is building capacity at every level. So directors of school support learn from each other, principals learn from each other, principals also learn from directors of school support, and we're able to scale what's working faster. There's some early signs of success. Quality feedback's increasing, so these are from our middle schools. This data is about 2 months old, so it's actually better now in that more of it has happened. Middle schools have managed to conduct 1,392 classroom visits as of March, send 865 recap emails, and have over, at this point, 500 non-evaluative coaching conversations. The quality is really important, and in particular, we want to make sure that both those who are doing the coaching and those who are receiving the coaching are having a positive experience. So a couple of things to call out. 100% of those doing the coaching believe that, and this is MSSM represents middle school support model, that doing this work is leading to a more commonly shared vision for great classroom practice within and across buildings. 100% of principals agree that they're seeing improvement in the classroom practice of the teachers that I coach. I'm pausing there because it's such an unusual thing to hear in districts that we partner with. 100% of teachers are improving through the eyes of their principals. Bar for great classrooms has been raised as a result of the work they've participated in. From those receiving the coaching, so these are the teachers being coached, which is all of them in the 6 middle schools that we've worked in, 96% of them find their coach to be reliable, to say that they'll do what they'll do, be responsive in their communication. And more than 9 out of 10 believe that their coach gives them actionable feedback that helps them improve students doing the thinking in their classroom, which, as you'll remember, was one of the key findings in the rigor audit that was conducted 2 years before, that there were gaps in that area specifically. 87% of teachers believe we have a shared vision for instruction in the EVSC. That's up from 73% a year ago. So scaling what works in the upcoming year, you all have, and I want to thank you for investing in another year of partnership. The work ahead, we now have a vision and a path. We've got a year under our belt of working with middle schools. We're going to continue to do that work, and we're going to scale it to elementary schools. We're going to have an evolved model for middle schools so that folks are not only practicing what they've already learned, but also extending it and improving their skills. And then we're going to continue to work with high schools. This year we've been doing some work with PLCs, and 2 years ago we did the coaching work. Now we have the vision for teaching and learning, the North Star to aim towards, and we're excited to continue to partner with Darla Hoover and her team, as well as the principals in those high schools. So, quick overview of some of the work that we've done together and some of the work ahead. Really grateful for everyone's time. Thank you.